It's an honor for me to stand here before you. It's indeed an honor to have my 3 granddaughters here also, so that they can see that this is where our basketball court was. There was a basket up there, and there was a basket up there. It was about half the size of a normal high school, a little more than half the size of a normal high school basketball. Before I go any further, of course, not knowing what the program was going to be, I knew that Arnold was going to come before me, but I didn't know he was going to give invocation. And of course, at this day and time, not knowing what your audience might be, sometimes it's not appropriate to give an invocation. You know, we have these conversations nationwide about who can speak and who can't speak. And so I do know that probably from 1936 to 1941, in the black community here in Loudoun County, there was a lot of praying.
Amen.
Praying that the establishment would do the right thing. And so I think I was going to ask just for a moment of silence. We'll skip that. For those people who were in the forefront and behind the scenes trying to raise the funds to get this building. The name of the, and I don't know how this happened, I'm speculating that someone worked for Mr. Gibbons, who was the individual who owned this land. And he probably had an inkling, or someone talked to him and said, hey, countywide, they're trying to buy enough land to build a high school somewhere for the black students in the county. And he probably very quietly says, shh, I have 8 acres right outside of town. I'll sell it to you. Just raise the money. When you've got the money, come to me. This is what it's going to cost. And I will deed it to your organization, and you can, and ended up selling it to the school board for $1. They raised $4,000, and they sold it to the school board for $1. So I understand there was a lot of praying, and of course all I was going to say, thank you, Jesus. That's all I need to say. I was a member of the class of 1957. The building was 2 years, I was 2 years old when the building was opened in the fall of 1940. Of course, I didn't have the opportunity to address the audience at graduation because I wasn't the valedictorian or the salutatorian. But the most important thing that happened that particular year, the Middleburg Community Center, and this is a little background and then I'll get on with the history. The Middleburg Community Center for about a 3 or 4 year period gave scholarships to county, a student at county, and a student at high school in Fauquier. White students and black students. The white students at county and the high school in Fauquier received a scholarship of $650. The student at W.C. Taylor and here at Douglas, we got $325. But that $325 and Mr. Sidner, the principal, I know he changed my grades. Hey, I'm going he changed my grades. Okay? And I got a tuition scholarship, tuition grant, $200 to go to Virginia State. That $525 tuition room and board was only $488 for the year, so I had some money left over. And 4 years later, of course, I my sister, who's sitting here, in the fall of 1961, after I finished doing my student teaching, I came by to visit. Mr. Sidner said, "Oh, how long are you going to be here? Can you do a little subbing?" So he said, "How about coming back tomorrow?" That was a Friday. And on Monday, I worked Friday. I don't know who I worked for. Monday I worked. And before I left, he said, "Hey, can you do the next 6 weeks? Because Mrs. Houghton, math teacher, she's going to be out." And so for 6 weeks, over there where it says room 202, I taught Algebra 1, Algebra 2, Geometry, and Consumer Math. I'm a health and physical education major. But we had a lady here named Bernice Carroll who graduated from Douglas and then went to Virginia State, who was my math teacher. And so had to take 6 hours at Virginia State also. And this year, before Christmas, for 27 days, I taught math to 7th grade special ed students at a middle school in Richmond. Because we had a professor at Virginia State who said, first of all, you're a teacher, and then you're a teacher in your chosen field. Go find a book. Well, that was, 50-some years ago, find a book. Now you've got a CD, you got everything. If you can't teach today, you can't teach. Okay. Now, I've been asked to take you on a journey through the 27 years that Douglas High School was a school not of choice, but the only option that Negro students had in Loudoun County. Some students in the area of Sterling, who might have lived closer to Fairfax, who might have lived on the other side of the line in Fairfax, also came here. And parents who could afford it sent their children to Manassas Industrial School. Oh, by the way, Ms. Simmons is a graduate of Virginia State also.
Class of 1983.
Since I was only 2 when the building was opened, I'm relying upon historical data that was found in the newsletters that Gert did for 13 years, and Reggie did, and of course I did this past year. And Merle, you still have some, but I need to get a hold of. And one of the historical, is Elaine Thompson? She did a very good historical piece in one of the newsletters, so some of that information I've taken from there. Now, this is the second opportunity I've had to address an audience here at Douglas. When the plaque was placed out there, designated as a historical site, I also was one of the speakers. I went online, and you can do this. If you really want some interesting reading, go online, Virginia Historical Sites. And it'll list by county all the sites. Go to Loudoun County, find the Douglas High School site. And there you will find a 22-page application that was submitted so that this could become a historical site. And the letters, I think the most interesting part are the letters that Charles Houston, Esquire, who was one of the lawyers who led the fight that led to the decision in 1954 for the desegregation of schools. He was one of the lawyers. Now, this was in probably 39 and 40, when he was writing the letters to Mr. O.L. Emmerich, who was the superintendent of the schools. They were not angry letters. They were letters that were written hoping that the school board and the county would do the right thing. And I think it's significant in the word Loudoun County. We have Lincoln, Waterford. We had a large Quaker influence here in the county. And I think that might have had something to do with maybe the way he wrote the letters and the outcome. So, but I think, go find that application and read it. It's very interesting reading. Historical sites in Virginia. And I think that his work on trying to get this school built also played into what happened in the 50s when the landmark decision was made. Now, the original Douglas building was 9,400 square feet. 9,400 square feet, 4 classrooms, 2 on each side, the office. Something looks a little out of, I don't remember 2 doors over there, whatever. But like I said, 9,400 square feet, 2 classrooms on each side, the office, common area. There was a classroom back there. As you come in there, no, there was one there, but there was also a class right here. This is where the health classes were held. And I had, some of you might remember a little lady named Miss Wilson. She taught civics and social studies on the stage. Yep. And then, of course, the shop was built after this building was in place. And some of the students of Mr. Moses Knox did the brickwork for that building. Yep. And it's interesting, I was at a gas station in Toanna. Some of you know where Toanna is. And there was a guy, and they looked like they'd been doing some brickwork. I said, "Oh, where are you from?" He said, "I'm from Emporia." I said, "Where'd you learn to do brickwork?" He said, "Mr. Moses Knox." He said, "But I had to carry and mix a whole lot of cement before Mr. Knox even let me lay a brick." So, Purcellville, I mean, a lot of those guys who lived in Purcellville and went down the country to Darlington, they learned their masonry skills from Mr. Knox. Now, in that building also, the shop building, when I came here, Miss Briscoe, we had a classroom back there, and of course out in the front was Mr. Daniels with his shop. You know, they didn't tell me how much time I had. And at the church I go to, the Reverend always says, "Hey, y'all owe me some time." Mr. Daniels was very, I didn't hear that, my hearing aids are not turning.
Mr. Ashton is what, 3 minutes?
Yeah, okay. Ashton, come here. Measure this. Oh, it's 11.5 inches, Mr. Daniels. Anderson, how long is it supposed to be? 12 inches, Mr. Daniels. And at that point, Mr. Daniels took his hammer and said, "Start over." He was very exacting. What he was doing. Okay, I'm gonna move on. In 1954, classrooms were added on the side of the building, going out by the boys' bathroom. No gym. The gym was built in 1960, and so we went from 56 feet to a regulation 84-foot basketball court. The students who entered the building in September 1941, 75 years ago, entered with a great deal of pride and with high ambitions. Mr. Elijah Coram, in the newsletter published to celebrate the 60th anniversary, stated, and I quote, "We all had such pride in this. Our parents, families, and neighbors had put so much hard work into making this school become a reality, one of the first county high schools for Negroes in Northern Virginia." The principal was Mr. Liverpool. Ellen Jordan lived across the street over here in the first house past the bank. She was the secretary, along with Eleanor Harris, who lived in Middleburg, and a cousin, right? One of more, not a cousin, did he? The curriculum, the normal courses, as well as shop with brick mason. Typing was taught by Mr. John Talbert, who had taken typing at Dunbar High School in D.C. He grew up in Charlestown, but there was no high school, so his folks sent him to Washington. He went to Dunbar. A lot of famous people came out of Dunbar. And so he drove the bus from Rock Hill down to Willisville, Middleburg, Albany, came to Leesburg, and then he went and he taught typing for a year until they hired a typing teacher. The school, as I said, opened in 1941. Some of the students left because after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And the fact that they ended the service and returned home to a still segregated America is ironic in that the European people treated them with respect that they did not get at home. Now, the new school provided opportunities that did not exist at the school on Union Street. Now, there were high school classes taught at the old, still there, school on Union Street, two-story building next to the cemetery up there. That one-story addition was a black school. It was taken apart, moved to Leesburg, and added to the two-story building so that some high school classes could be taught. And so it's still there. That's another story also. Sports. Once the school was built, they began to play sports. They traveled to other schools. The first baseball game played out here was between the town teams of Waterford and Brunswick and a composite team of Douglas boys and the Leesburg town team to raise money for the equipment of the school. The building was here. There were no curtains. You know, the county built the school. There were no curtains for the stage, so the money had to be raised for chairs, for the curtains, for a lot of other things that would normally be included today. It's just, you know it's going to happen. The drama club that first year started a tradition of presenting two one-act plays. And they continued through the 4 years that I went here. Of course, I never learned my lines as written, but I was always on time. During this first year, also during the war, Mr. Knox's shop class built 16 model planes to be used by the Navy to help train the identification of friendly and enemy aircraft during World War II. Also during this time, a gentleman who had been a principal of a school in Hillsborough, Dr. Brand, before he went to dental school, he was a principal. But he visited during the first year of the school. I happened to work for this gentleman for 6 years. He's the kind of guy, even though it was in the 40s, that today would be at the center of the social movement to try to make things right. First principal was Mr. Liverpool, then Mr. Oliver came. Probably one of the longest serving teachers here was Mrs. Craven. My sister said that she probably was no older than some of the students that were in her class, because she had graduated at about 19 from Storr College in Harpers Ferry. She was very active in the things that they did for. We started our first football team in 1952, 6-man football. Mr. Richard Moore here was one of the members of the first football team. And then the next year we went to 11 men. In the fall of 1947, the staff was 48 strong. When the school closed, it was about 23. The course offerings and everything had increased. We had great games. There's a picture around here of the girls' basketball team showing the trophy that they won for the Tri-State Basketball League. That particular year, they played in Martinsburg. I remember going. Murray Lee was on the. Murray Lee, were you on that team too? Okay. I went to that game. You played it over at the White High School in Martinsburg. They go to you. Okay. When Mr. Daniels was I'm getting there, ma'am. Mr. Daniels, as a 9th grader, Mr. Daniels came into Mr. Barrett's science room where we were changing and said, "Y'all got to go back out and continue playing." We were playing Berryville. Some guy from Berryville had pulled a gun and said, "Hey, we're going to have overtime." And we came back out and played. Okay. One of the most significant things, we had a music teacher come in 1953 named Mamie Warner, who took us to I think the boys' choir for sure went to just about every church in the county. And she said, "We're going to start on time if we're the only people in the church." But she was young. She took us to the state. And I can see, I'm not sure whether it was Hilton or Harry who sang Old Man River. Anybody know? Hilton. Hilton? Mm-hmm. Old Man River. Boy, you've never heard it sing like that. Okay. About finished. But I'm going to bring up one guy. You talk about education and what you get. My friend, my job guy, my best man, Harvey Day. Some of you know where Harvey lived. And you know, any Day relatives here? You know, and every summer it seemed like they would get flooded out. But Harvey graduated in 1956, went to Fayetteville State in North Carolina thinking he had a football scholarship. And when he got there, he found out he didn't have anything except what he brought with him. And 4 years later, he graduated with a degree in elementary education. Taught his first year at an elementary school in Berryville, and then for the next 26 years he taught in Washington, D.C. Just to today he'd probably be labeled learning disabled. You know, we went to school a lot, but he was a great teacher for 26 years. And so one other lady, Mrs. Ruby L. Smith, anybody know her? Percival, probably. Migrated to New Jersey, married, worked, and attended Essex Community College and Rutgers University. And she says, thanks to the teachers at Douglas, she found the college work to be easy, graduating with a 3.5 grade point average. And of course, Albert Hall was a dentist, graduated from here. Raymond Young and Shannon Smith also became dentists. Joseph Baltimore became a lawyer.
He's a judge now.
Give me a couple, I'm finished. you got to. I
Class
spent.
are telling me.
I'm gonna, y'all have to bear with me. And I'm gonna finish this. I got 3 paragraphs and I'll read it. No ad-lib. As integration loomed over the county, some of the students were not ready for this transition, and some were ready and some were not. If you lived in Leesburg, there was a chance you had a white neighbor. Ask to tell someone where the black people lived in Leesburg, you would probably say Waverly Heights, south of the Safeway. But we were outside the corporation limits. The Methodist parsonage, completely surrounded by white people. Where the Valentines lived, where Mr. Bertie Robinson's house was. Right in the middle of everything. Our baseball team was integrated with the Williams boys. Their father was a plumber. And of course, they played with us until the fireman told us if we wanted to continue using the field, we'd have to get rid of them as players. The Randolph boys were more than friends with Larry Phillips. The beginning and the end of Douglas High School as an all-black high school came when a young lady from Waverly Heights named Helen Rainey entered Loudoun County High School in the fall of '62. My brother Gene Ashton told me that the students at Douglas High School had met and decided that many of them would leave Douglas and transfer to County or Valley. He stated there could not have been a better choice than Helen to lead the way. Attractive, smart, and with a manner that would allow her to survive until a larger number arrived in 1963. It took 6 years for the school board to close Douglas as a high school in 1968. For 27 school years, students from all over the county rode those school buses past facilities that were more modern. But there was one thing those buildings lacked, and that was dedicated teachers who made it their mission to see that when we left Douglas, we were prepared for what the world had to offer. We had the leader of the countywide league was a gentleman named Mr. John Watson. And he always came to an assembly to address the new freshmen. And he had one question to ask when he left. If you're so smart, how can a black and white cow eat green grass, get white belt, and yellow butter?